No, this isn't about a giant shark tearing through the ocean. It's about something smaller, faster, and supposedly deadlier. A fish so tiny you might laugh at it until it bites you. And here's the unsettling part. You might not even feel it. Not at first. You'd only realize what happened when you saw the blood. So what actually happens if you fall into a pool full of piranhas? Do they really strip you to the bone in seconds? Or is that just a story we've been telling ourselves? Because something about that story doesn't add up. Think about it. If these fish are as deadly as we've been told, why aren't rivers filled with skeletons? Why don't we hear about attacks every day? And this is where it gets strange. Everything you think you know about piranhas might be wrong, but not in the way you expect. Because the truth isn't less terrifying. It's just different. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So let's start at the beginning. Not with the attack, but with the myth that made these fish famous. Because the real danger doesn't start with teeth. It starts with a story. And that story changed everything. More than 100 years ago, something happened in a river that rewrote how the world sees piranhas. A former president stood at the edge of the water, watching. A dead cow was thrown in. And within seconds, the water exploded. Flesh vanished. Bones surfaced. Gone. Just like that. But here's the strange part. That moment wasn't natural. It was staged. Those fish had been starved, trapped, turned into something they normally aren't. And yet, that single event spread across the world like wildfire. Suddenly, piranhas weren't just fish. They were monsters. Fast forward, and movies, books, and stories turned them into underwater nightmares. Creatures that could sense a drop of blood from miles away. Killers that attack anything that moves. But what happens when you strip away the drama? What's left? And this is where it gets weird. Most piranhas aren't hunters at all. They're scavengers. They eat insects, plants, bits of whatever they can find. Not humans. Not large animals. So now the question flips. If they're not the killers we imagined, why do they have teeth like razors? Why do they move in groups? And why does the idea of falling into a pool of them still feel so terrifying? Because even if the myth is wrong, there's still something real hiding underneath. And that's where things start to change. Imagine falling into the water. Splash. Silence. For a moment, nothing happens. No sudden swarm. No violent attack. Just ripples. And dozens, maybe hundreds, of small shapes shifting beneath you. Watching. But here's the unexpected part. They're not rushing toward you. They're backing away. Yes, away. Because to them, you're not prey. You're a threat. Something too big. Too unfamiliar. Too unpredictable. And that changes everything. Most piranhas won't attack a living human. Not unless something is very wrong. Extreme hunger. Frenzy conditions. Or the smell of something already dead. And this is where it gets unsettling. Because if the situation changes, they change too. If the water is crowded. If food is scarce. If panic spreads through the group. Their behavior flips. Calm becomes chaos. Stillness becomes motion. And motion becomes attack. So now the real question isn't will they bite? It's what makes them start? Because once it starts, it doesn't stop. And what happens next is faster than you think. Let's say the worst happens. One bite. That's all it takes. Not painful. Not at first. Just pressure. Then another. And another. And suddenly, the water isn't calm anymore. It's boiling. Hundreds of bodies colliding. Teeth flashing. Movement everywhere. And this is where it gets terrifying. A single piranha has a bite force stronger than you'd expect. Stronger, relative to its size, than some of the most feared predators ever known. Now multiply that by hundreds. Each one reacting to movement, to scent, to chaos. This isn't a coordinated attack. It's a chain reaction. And chain reactions don't slow down. They speed up. Fast. What happens next changes everything. Because at that point, it's not about hunting. It's about momentum. And momentum doesn't care what you are. In the most extreme scenario, a large group could strip flesh at an unbelievable rate. Minutes, not seconds, but still, faster than most people could react. And yet, even this version isn't what usually happens. Which raises a final question. If they're capable of this, why doesn't it happen more often? What's holding them back? And what would it take to remove that limit completely? Here's the truth no one tells you. Piranhas aren't killers by default. They're opportunists. They respond to conditions. Pressure. Scarcity. Signals in the water you can't even see. And under normal circumstances, you're not on their menu. But that doesn't mean you're safe. Because safety depends on balance. And balance can break. Fast. A dry season. A feeding frenzy. An enclosed space. Suddenly, the rules change. And when the rules change, so do they? But here's the final twist. Even in the worst-case scenario, they're not the most dangerous thing in the water. Not even close. There are bigger predators. Stronger ones. Smarter ones. Creatures that don't hesitate. Which means the real danger isn't just what you see. It's what you don't. So the next time you think about piranhas, don't picture mindless killers. Picture something quieter. Something waiting. Something that only becomes dangerous when everything else goes wrong. And that leaves one question you can't ignore. If a creature only attacks under the perfect conditions, what happens when those conditions finally appear? And more importantly, would you even see it